Hubris, that prideful overconfidence which offends the gods, leads inexorably to downfall, and which is at the heart of every Greek tragedy. After World War II, the hubris of governments, snatching up Nazi scientists to spearhead experimental rocket programs as part of rapidly accelerating efforts to beat Russia in the race to conquer outer space or to amass the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons, nearly brought the world to the brink of utter destruction. Hubris can also take the form of an American horror podcaster pontificating about a subject on which he is not an expert. Which brings me to Professor Bernard Quatermass. Quatermass, created by the legendary television dramatist Nigel Neal, first appeared in The Quatermass Experiment, a 6-episode BBC television serial that was broadcast live during July and August of 1953, and which, by all accounts, broke everyone's minds. The story concerns the experimental rocket project headed by Professor Bernard Quatermass. When one of their rockets returns to Earth, the crew's sole survivor goes missing. A manhunt for the missing astronaut ensues, and Quatermass quickly discovers that the man who returned in that rocket may not be entirely human. The serial proved to be so successful that it spawned 3 sequel serials: Quatermass 2, Quatermass and the Pit, and the Quatermass Conclusion, 3 feature film remakes of the first 3 serials, and in the year 2005, a modern-day live remake of the original Quatermass Experiment. The Quatermass series is a touchstone of British pop culture, without which we very certainly would not have Doctor Who, a franchise that borrows liberally from Neil's rocket scientist, and is a part of British cultural memory. From what I can gather, nearly everyone in the UK has a story about how they, or a parent or a grandparent, watched that live broadcast of that first serial and were utterly terrified by it. I believe that one needs to be British to truly understand the impact of Quatermass as a character and as a cultural phenomenon. But that's not going to stop me from talking about it anyway. Hubris! And so during the intermission, I'll return to provide my official and definitive ranking of the different actors to play Professor Quatermass. In the meantime, Tara and Jessica from the podcast 3 Spooked Girls are back to talk about horrors that hit a little closer to home. Ladies, take it away.
When you want to hear about the paranormal, you get the Spooked Girls. True crime that makes you hypothermal. With the 3 Spooked Girls, stabby snippets will give you dreams. Tara and Jessica will make you along with the Spooked Girls. Bring on the slaughter, we on that haunted ground. The 3 Spooked Girls.
The fire's out, not burned down out, cold, like it was never lit. Your eyes snap open to pitch black. No stars, no moon, just the sound of breathing that isn't yours. Too many footsteps to be one animal. Too quiet to be a bear. You sit up, heart in your throat. Something crunches outside the tent. Not twigs, bones. A hand slaps the neon wall. Long fingers, wrong fingers. Another hand joins, and then another. And then a face presses against the fabric. No light, but you feel a grin. They don't speak. They gargle. You reach for your flashlight. It's not there. The zipper pulls down, slowly, carefully. You scream, they laugh. Hey there, spooksters. Welcome back to another episode here on 3 Spooked Girls. My name is Jessica, and as always, I'm joined by my favorite gal pal, Tara.
Hey, spooksters.
I know, Tara can't take me seriously when I just go straight from a little spooky story into, hey there.
Normal. I couldn't even look. I had to look. I was looking down. I couldn't even look at her because I'm like, one, I'll probably make her too nervous if I'm watching. And
Very
two,
true.
I was like, I'm just going to let the vibes happen.
vibes.
So, hi, guys.
Hi. I decided to do an alternate intro this morning or today. I don't know what time of day it is for you. It's afternoon for us now. This week, sorry. I decided to do an alternate intro this week because we're going to be talking about something that literally scared the shit out of me, thanks to a creator on the internet. We're going to be talking about feral people. So I thought, why not scare you? I am going to warn you, this scared the shit out of me. What's really, really interesting, since we started the show, there's only been one episode where I've actually really lost sleep doing. And that was our very, very first episode when we talked about black-eyed children. And that's because if you've listened to our episode on Tara and I's experiences, I've experienced one in my life and it was terrifying. And I am so I was not okay with it. It gave me the big ick and I didn't sleep for a while. This episode is about feral people, and thanks to a creator on TikTok who has a podcast, and I will tell you about her in a little bit. I started scrolling through and it was like I was just being fed her series on feral people, and I was like, what the fuck? And I was watching it, or watching them at I don't know, 11 o'clock at night. So just perfect timing for Jessica. And so then I had to stay up later because I had to counterbalance it. I don't know, but feral people scare the shit out of me. This idea. So are feral people living in our national parks? Is it part folklore? Is it part fear or part cover up? We are going to find out. So we have to set the scene of where you would find feral people, because what feral people are people who live completely off the grid. They are described as people who have no contact with really modern day technology. Well, some of them, but they live off grid. There's no record of who these people are, or if they are, they're people who have just gone off, and they are found in our national parks. Often, or supposedly, I should say, found in our national parks. Just a little brief history on national parks, because I figured that was a fun place to start, where it's happy and not scary. Let's start with that. So according to the National Parks Service website, national parks have become recognized as the most popular concept in U.S. history. And it is amazing in our time that we have preserved so many acreage of different types of wild lands for humans to go and observe in its natural state. Whereas I live in a city and everything is concrete, This has been amazing that we can go to places like Yosemite or Yellowstone or Glacier National Park and be able to turn back time. And that's really what it's meant to do. National parks is the last frontier for the United States. I love when I go there. There's something about being in the woods that makes you feel, or in the woods or in a meadow type area, where you just kind of feel your body reconnects to the earth. Mm-hmm. My favorite national park is Yosemite. I think it's beautiful, and it has in the fall, it just looks like there's this waterfall of fire. It's so gorgeous. What is your favorite national park?
I think I would say the same, just because that was the first one I ever been to. And it was one of my earlier memories of the few times I've went camping. Granted, it was in an RV and stuff, but still. And yeah, in general, I just love, because you guys know, or those who have listened long enough, I lived in Alaska for a long time. And that's why I loved it up there so much, is just because anytime I'm in the woods or somewhere like that, where it's no buildings, no traffic, no nothing, I just feel so at peace. So I am just here for all of it. And I know this isn't what you asked, but I really want to go to Yellowstone. That's a big bucket place for me for national parks. So yeah.
In 1891, there was the Forest Reserve Act that allowed presidents to proclaim permanent forest reserves on publicly owned land. Legislation then was led to preserve those forests. And I just kind of love that. And it kind of goes into the next part of what would create a perfect situation for a feral person. And that would be a liminal space, which is a wild, unmapped, ancient territory where folklore thrives. And basically the concept is that it's the place of in between. So how this would work, how this would kind of play into this scenario is that in folklore and mythology, they're not just like literal places, but symbolic locations. And so there are times and periods where like liminal spaces mean more. But it's interesting that there are these places that are carved out. I guess the question that we have to answer in this episode is, are there really feral people living off-grid in national parks, or is there something stranger afoot?
Could be both.
Mm-hmm. So really where these kind of stories came from were like, especially recently, like TikTok has really brought awareness to kind of more cryptid or more spookier topics because people are sharing them a lot more. Obviously, Reddit is one of those places where it just kind of is taken off. So really kind of the concept of what a person is that it's this person living off grid, but why does it mean anything to us? Like, why would this concept of people living off the grid? Like, I'm sure there's people who live off the grid that we just never know. They just like live off grid. But these feral people have been, their stories that kind of come out about them attacking people. You know, when we hear in the news, like campers have gone missing and then they're like seemingly just walked off into the wilderness because there's only footprints, you know, there's only boot prints. There's no animal attack. Nothing was like sliced open. Just these people went missing. And kind of the theory behind this is that this is the result of feral people who are coming in and attacking people, and that this also could be like a string of cannibalistic people as well. We have a lot of people that go missing in national parks. Every year, it's like thousands of people just disappear. How do people just like disappear? Like people like, well, bears do leave traces of like people when they attack them.
And paw prints.
And so we're going to kind of dive into that. So like I was telling you earlier, a few weeks ago, I was like laying in bed and my algorithm decided to like just dump this nugget of knowledge into my lap. And that was thanks to someone. Her handle is Ashley Inc. And she did a series on feral people. She also has a podcast, which is called Spooky Scary Storytime. So she actually has a lot more information, or like stories, I should say, about feral people on her podcast. So if you wanted to check those out, you definitely could. But yeah, she was like, her face was just popping up constantly. And it's like one of the stories she was telling is that like a friend of hers was like a bartender, and she worked in this place that was kind of like adjacent to a national park. And this guy used to come in and he was like sitting there. This is the story that like brought me in, right? I was like, what's happening? And this guy was a regular. He'd come in like every day about 2 p.m. and he would sit there and he wouldn't talk to people really. And he would just like he'd have like a couple of beers and then he'd go and then he'd leave. It was like just a thing. So I guess one night the bartender is like cleaning up and there's this person and they were talking about how they'd heard something weird in the forest, blah, blah, blah. And the guy just uncharacteristically is like, don't go in the forest. There are feral people there. And he tells the story about how he's been in the forest and he's seen like eyes that were like staring back at him, and that he could like hear somebody calling for help because he was like a ranger, like he was like rescuing people or walking through the forest. And he's like, I've been in places where I've just felt completely uneasy and that people are watching me, but I can't see them and things go missing. And I'm like, okay, but it would make sense that these people would just be out there. Think about like Yosemite is huge. And if you knew where to hide and to stay away from people, you're only going to interact with like really, really experienced woods people. So I don't know. Ashley did a fantastic job and I was like fucking hooked. I was like, what are feral people and why do I need to know? But it's kind of like one of those things where they're like, they might be the reason why people go missing in the woods. Because if you're like, oh, there's only footprints, there's no bear prints, you're going to be like, oh, they just got up and walked off. And then I started thinking about things like, you know, like the Diablo Pass that we did like years ago. Granted, they think that was something different, but I was like, what if that was also feral people?
You mean the Dyatlov? You said Diablo.
Yes. Sorry. I don't know why Diablo came into my head. You were correct.
Different. I mean, different but same, I guess. But yes. If you're wanting to read some stuff on Twitter about it, there's a couple places I'd recommend. It's like the Reddit thread, which is like r/backwoods or missing 411 are two places I would recommend. I read a bunch of stories, but I'm going to talk about the missing 411 now. But like, if you're wanting just to kind of like read people's interactions or what they've seen, we're going to talk about some other stuff in a minute. But missing 411 is actually based on some books written by a man named David Paulides. I think that's how we say his last name. He's an American former police officer who is known for his being an investigator and writing books
about people who have gone missing, but also proving his number one goal in life is to prove the reality of Bigfoot.
I love that.
David has my vote. His Missing 411 series is a self-published book, and there's 2 documentaries that have come out about this as well. And it's about people who go missing in national parks and just the cases surrounding them. And so I'm going to share some of those cases with you now. There are some cases that are outlined, and the first one is a man named Carl Landers. And Tara, he went missing on Mount Shasta.
Oh, shit.
In 1999.
Oh my God, we were in the same area.
Right? Like, I was like, no. Carl was 69 years old. He was an ultra marathoner and an experienced hiker who disappeared while on a trip with 2 friends to climb Mount Shasta. He went ahead towards the summit and was never seen again. The helicopter team, the dogs, the ground searches found 0 traces of him. Dogs didn't pick up a scent, and visibility was clear. Like, you can see, like, if you've ever been on Shasta, it is quite visible. And then, I mean, we've talked about, like, when we talked about aliens, we talked about that Mount Shasta has, like, some experience with that. But yeah, it is tied to folklore and strange phenomena. I could see people living on Shasta. Number 2, this one is another close to where we grew up, Tara, which is Happy Camp, California, which is up near, right? A man, but this was in 1958. So a little later.
We didn't exist.
Earlier. Yeah, no.
Little comfort in that.
Not even a twinkle in anyone's eye at that point. Alan Eugene Wilson, he was 74 years old and he vanished while hunting in the Klamath National Forest. Wilson was last seen heading into the woods with his rifle. No trace was ever found. They did heavy searches. They never found anything. Local native folklore mentions strange disappearances in the region. Happy Camp is just an odd place. No offense to anyone who's from Happy Camp. I'm sure you would also define it as a little strange.
Yeah.
The next, we're going to go to Idaho, a man by the name of Raymond Jones. He was 39. He disappeared during a bow hunting trip for mountain goats, and he told his friends he would be back shortly and vanished without a sound. There was bad weather, which stalled the search effects. A year later, his remains were found in the area that had been previously searched extensively, which is always a weird red flag, because that's always really weird when they're like, no, we went in there was nothing, and now we found him. And there was no clear cause of death to be determined. So
yeah, at that point.
We have another one a little closer, because that one happened in 1968. Our next one is also in Idaho, in Priest Lake, Idaho. Terry Jacobson. This happened in 2016. He was 62, a hunter who was separated from his brother while stalking elk, and he was never seen from again. Despite search teams and helicopters and scent dogs, there was no tracks, no clothing, no gear. The dogs behaved strangely and refused to track.
Oh, that is sketchy. They were picking up something that they were just like, this is a danger, so we're not going near it. Oh my
God. Another story, this is the last one I will share, is a man by the name of Thomas Missick. He was in Brant Lake, New York. In 2015, he was 82. He was a retired forest ranger and military vet on a hunting trip with his family. He was the oldest and least mobile of the group and was stationed near the road in case the deers were to push his way. He disappeared without a trace, no sign of struggle, no blood, no gear left behind. The same group reported hearing strange snaps and loud booms at the time of the disappearance. The FBI showed unusual interest in this case. What is a kind of a common theme amongst all of these and amongst a lot of those who go missing in national parks is that most individuals who go missing are all skilled outdoorsmen, unlikely to get lost, unlikely to like not be able to fend for themselves if they did get lost. Bodies are rarely recovered, and if they are recovered, they are in places that have been previously searched. Dogs fail or refuse to track. Strange weather patterns often roll in during or after the disappearance. The disappearances occur near water, boulder fields, or dense forests. And there is no signs of animal tracks, incidents, or human foul play. David, he has a documentary called Missing 411. He doesn't draw specific conclusions, but highlights the repeating patterns and anomalies suggesting the disappearances defy logical explanation. He avoids attributing any causes to Bigfoot's, aliens, government conspiracies, though many viewers have speculated that that's what he is doing. He emphasizes that these are not standard missing persons cases and that the level of trainings of the victims make it statistically and logically improbable that they would vanish without a trace, which is like, oh my God, that's crazy. If you want to watch that documentary, it's called Missing 411 Hunted. I didn't watch it because I was like, I can't put any more like crazy shit in my brain. Like it's gonna.
I'm reeling enough already.
I'll
check it out. I'll get bored. I'll get bored and watch it. I'm down.
So really what they're thinking is that these men that went missing, that feral people in national parks or heavily wooded areas, they just come in and they snatch people. And it's very interesting to me. They're defined as feral people who are typically described as humans who have lived in isolation from society for expanded periods of time or extended periods of time, and often in wilderness settings. And they are believed to have abandoned social norms, like language or civilized behavior, which is interesting because now I just keep thinking of the movie Nell. I don't know if you know what that is. It's about the little girl who goes missing and then they recover her and she's feral.
Huh.
It's a movie in the 90s.
Interesting. No, I never heard of that one.
It's a little crazy. So common characteristics attributed to feral people include living off the grid in forests, mountains, and caves, wearing tattered clothes or animal hides, or they naked.
Makes sense.
I don't know that I'd want to be naked, like living in the forest. I just feel like that'd be uncomfortable.
I mean, yeah,
You know,
but like if that's all they know, and that's
Right.
like what they're used to, you know.
It's true. I just would need some sort of protection from the pokey things. Like if you sat on the ground, there's like sticks and pine needles and
Oh, I'm with you.
Yeah,
I would not want to be naked either, but it's like I'm just like thinking, I'm like, if they've got these full like population communities going, then that means children were born into this. So it's like those children wouldn't know any different, and then they grow up to be an adult. So like, you know, it's like its own evolution, basically.
right. Mhm.
Crazy. But yeah, no, as someone who lives in civilization, no, thank you. Well, actually, I don't want to be out there doing the camping thing anyway. But like, definitely do not sign me up for Naked and Afraid because that would be the most awful fucking thing of my life.
Right? No, that's the biggest punishment for me would be naked and afraid. I don't know what would be weirder. Like, I think I would be so frightened if I walked up on a naked person in the forest. I'd be like, what are you doing?
Oh, yeah.
Why are you
That's
naked?
right. And then they're like, you know, they're going to be like dirty and probably have like crazy matted hair and just like,
Mhm.
you know, you don't know how they're going to react to you. So,
Right.
yeah, that would be pretty frightening.
It would. Also, I'm so glad we're putting this out in August after everyone has gone camping for the summer.
Some people go camping before Labor Day, though. So if that's you, sorry, but
Watch
too
out for
late.
feral people. And if you
Watch out.
and also if you've had a feral person encounter, please let us know. We would like to
Oh my
know.
God. Yeah.
Some other characteristics of feral people are they avoid contact with outsiders and in some stories behaving aggressive towards them. That would make sense. Lacking spoken language or speaking in guttural sounds. Moving silently and stealthily throughout the woods, and being excessively recluse, nomadic, and survivalistic. I mean, that would make sense. Like if you didn't know what civilization was or knew how to interact with it, because like Tara said, that's a very good point, is that they do believe that there's been generations of people born into this. If you're a child, you may never have encountered modern technology outside of like seeing someone walk through the woods and being like, why is that person wearing, like, I can just see them like seeing like a Pinterest mom in a forest and being like, why is she wearing that puffy thing?
What's on her feet?
What's on her feet?
Look like that?
Right. Like, just what is the headband that seems to only be covering the ears, but not the rest of the head? Like, just, yeah, 2015 would have been very confusing for feral people. So here are some claims by hunters, hikers, and even park rangers. And this one is called The Silent Watcher. It was from a backcountry hiker in the Great Smoky Mountains. A solo hiker camped deep off trail in the Smoky Mountains and woke up to the sensation of being watched. He described it being eerily quiet. There were no insect or animal noises. At 2 a.m., he spotted two eyes reflecting the firelight too far apart to be like a normal animal. So like human spacing, not like animal spacing. And the figure stood unmoving for over an hour. just watching, which is to me is what makes it not a bear. Because like a bear isn't going to stand there and stare at you for an hour. It's going to be like food. Oh, I just saw a video online of a bear. Some guy was like got out of their car at like a national park and was like feeding it crackers. And the bear was like moving closer. The bear attacked him.
Yeah.
And people were like, why? Why did it attack? It's a wild animal and you have all the crackers.
Literally, you baited it with food. Like, what do you mean?
Right. And he was just standing next to, don't get out of your car. Also, I saw, have you ever seen, there's this guy online. I need to find his handle. He's hilarious. He'll be like, white women ain't as scared of anything. Like that's his thing. And he finds these women, these like women online who are like vicious animal. Like it's a bear. Like there was literally the one I was watching was a bear. And it looked like it was, this bear is so smart. It looked like it was stuck in the bridge. And she's like, should we get out and help it? And her husband was like, no. And she's like, are you sure? And they're like, no, you shouldn't get out. And so another person stopped and had like basically barely gotten out of their car. And the bear just jumped up out of the hole. Like it was like, doo-doo-doo. And he goes, see, this is why you don't get out of the car. And the guy stitched it. And he was like, white women ain't afraid of nothing. If her husband wasn't there, she would have got out and tried to help that bear.
You know, I don't understand. Don't do it. Leave the wildlife alone. You don't need to stop and hop out and get a video or pictures because they don't give a fuck about that. If you don't want to risk your life, and I know that may sound drastic, but like leave the wildlife alone. Like genuinely, leave them alone. Even the smaller ones, because you never know what's feral or what's got rabies and all this other shit. Like, no. Just stay in your car or whatever and look from afar and leave it alone because you are going through its home.
And if you think that bear is stuck, you call the Forest Service. You call a park ranger because they will come tranquilize the bear and get it unstuck and move it. And it'll be fine. But also just a lot of bear videos have been showing up in my algorithm lately. I saw one where this like family went to get their groceries and they opened it up and there was a black bear. The black bear did not like any of their food. It didn't take anything. He just walked off and he was like, it's my Whole Foods not, because literally they were like, there's a bear. And they're like, oh no. Like they're like, and they're so smart because they were like, well, it's the bears now. Like, you know, like they didn't try to fight it or anything. And then the bear like smelled the food and was like, no. I'm like, walked away. I was like, what did you order from Whole Foods? And the bear was like, no, thank you. Anyway, sorry. So the story continues. So the hiker then yells and whatever it was ducked out of sight, but returned later closer. The hiker literally, as soon as the sun came up, backpacked the fuck out.
Good.
This is what prevents me from being like the thru hiker on Wild. I'm like, I would be abducted by feral people. Another one is coming from a bow hunter in the Olympic National Park. The Thing That Mimicked, it's called. A bow hunter reported hearing his own voice calling his name. He was 8 miles into thick forest when he heard what sounded like his hunting partner calling for help. But his partner wasn't on that trip. And when he approached the voice, he found no one was there, just footprints, bare, human-like, and erratic. That night, he was kept awake by something knocking on the trees, circling the camp, and mimicking his own breathing.
Oh my God, no.
Right? Number 3 is called Cabin Intruder, and it is by a park ranger in Northern California, which freaks me out. A seasonal ranger was staying in a remote cabin, found scratches along the wall and hair stuck in the door frame, which that could be a bear. Like, let's be real. That could be a bear. They assumed it was a bear until they realized that the hair was long and human and matted. Ugh. One night, they woke up to find the door ajar and muddy footprints inside, but no sign of forced entry. They then tried to track it, and the footprints disappeared or vanished into the creek, and the ranger transferred out of the area immediately.
I would too. Yeah. Goodbye. No thanks. Oh my God. Now I'm like, with these stories so far, I'm like, oh my God, is it feral people or is it skinwalkers?
Could be both.
What if people who've thought they saw skinwalkers, but it was really a feral person? Ugh, that makes it scarier. I don't like it. And vice versa. Ew.
I don't like skinwalkers. Skinwalkers also scare the shit out of me.
Yeah, both of these are scaring me. I don't like this.
This one is called The Man in the Deer Hides. It was on the Appalachian Trail, which we need to do a whole series just on. We need to do Appalachian Trail because that shit is crazy.
I know. Oh my God. I know. Speaking of TikTok, there's a creator that I follow. They live in that area and there's like a mimic that's like tormenting them. And it has been for like, I think years at this point. Ugh, creepy. Anyway, yeah. You know what I'm talking about? Scary. Yeah.
I don't want to talk about mimics. They scare me too. Ugh, I'm going to have to watch a lot of Disney today after this. Sorry for future Tara who's editing this and is being re-traumatized. Okay. So this is the man in the deer hides. Multiple through hikers of the Appalachian Trail reported sightings of a man draped in animal hides, walking barefoot, carrying a man-made spear and avoiding all contact. Well, at least he's off to himself. I'm going to keep reading. This might change. Some claims he watches hikers through the trees. One woman claimed he tried to steal her pack while she was sleeping. Okay. He's resourceful. Rangers could never locate him, but rumors of the, quote, wild man persist from Georgia to Maine. That is the whole fucking trail. It's so far. I mean, it's not the whole trail, but it's basically the whole trail. Okay. We have two more. The one I'm going to read and then the next one. This one is called The Screaming in the Canyon, and it is in the Yellowstone area. This is from an elk hunter. A hunter reported hearing an inhuman howling and screaming in a canyon while field dressing an elk. Thinking it might be a cougar, he stayed alert but saw nothing. Later that night, something threw rocks at his tent and ran off with his elk quarters. The next morning, the meat was gone and handprints and blood on a nearby tree, too large to be any normal human. Remember when we did the episode about Bigfoot? Yeah. With Jack Osborne and Jay, I can't remember Jay's last name, but Jay from Jay and Silent Bob. And they were like, one of the people were like, they were throwing shit. What if it was feral people?
Oh my God. It totally could have been. Holy fuck.
Right? Like you're too close. So I'm going to throw rocks at you to make you go away. Cause I would be scared. Like if I was just sitting there and a rock flew, I'd be like, I'm the fuck out.
Right?
The fuck out. The next one is a ranger's log entry, an unnamed national park, and this is a declassified memo. So at one point it was classified. A retired ranger claimed that in the 1990s, there was an internal memo warning rangers about an area with unidentified humanoid activity, including makeshift camps, piles of bones, and missing gear found shredded or gnarled. While they never acknowledged feral people, they routinely discouraged camping in certain remote areas and pulled maps that showed trails leading deep into the wilderness. Stories from the Appalachian Trail and the Smoky Mountains and families of going wild, generational isolation, and cannibalistic rumors, which is like fucking frightening to me. So what would cause people to go off grid other than just like not wanting to be part of the modern day technology or modern day civilization? They think some of these could go back to the Civil War with people wanting to not participate. And so they went off grid to hide. And so then they just like whole groups of people went off the grid. And to me, it's an interesting thing because then you have these like families who kind of become self-sufficient and then they basically don't want government oversight. There's a whole movement of that. Like we've seen that where people are like, I want limited government. Like there's a whole whatever. But I could see people being like, this is what I really want. I don't want really anyone to know my business. I'm going to go live in a forest by myself and my family and hopefully some other families.
That would make sense if it did start like all the way back to the Civil War and stuff, because you think about it like, yeah, they're going to have those initial families. They're going to have that social experience and, you know, like the civilization experience. But you have to think if there's just groups of these people in these communities and they're just, you know, staying there, keeping to themselves, having their own families and passing things down generation to generation, certain things get lost. So it makes sense about like, you know, they don't know how to interact with like current day people. They don't know like certain, I would assume there's probably, it's not like, you know, they're just like grunting. It's not like caveman where they're just like grunting and not talking. Like obviously there's some language brought down, but obviously that changes as time goes on too. That's crazy. Oh my God. What if all these things where it's like, they thought it was like Bigfoot and they thought it was like all these other things, but really it's just fucking feral people the whole time. Like what if they just, one of these sightings was just some really tall man with his crazy hair, because obviously they got no barber. Like, oh my God.
Right. And I think this kind of like notion like has become like exaggerated what we think of feral people because we've had movies like Deliverance or Wrong Turn or The Hills Have Eyes. It's kind of become deemed like the hillbilly horror, but really it could be this thing of like classist or even racism where like people are pushed out. It could even just be like people, especially like in the Appalachian, I don't want to go with that, areas where like, you know, like rural families lose everything. Like think Great Depression era. Like if you lost everything, you might just pack your shit up and move into the woods and live in that. And like, it could be that like, this is a way of, if you had survival skills, like if you knew how to hunt, you knew how to grow food, you knew how to like take care of yourself without being in modern civilization, it was probably easier than like trying to go find a job somewhere when you're like, I could just go homestead essentially. But then you remove yourself because, you know, civilization requires people to be counted. So unless you were going to be like, I'm going off grid and never talk to people again, you could get caught up. We've had wars with drafts. We've had things like that. You have to pay taxes and whatnot. So it's like, if you just were like, I don't want to be poor in society, I want to go be thriving in the woods, I could see that being a possibility. I don't want it myself. And then, you know, it just depends on like classism and like just where people are at in their lives. I could totally see it. I mean, I guess one of the questions is like, are we like, I had never really thought of feral people, even though there are a lot of kind of, I mean, I named 3 big franchises. Well, I mean, Deliverance is just a standalone, but like Wrong Turn, I don't know. There's like 12 of those now. I don't know. I don't like them. They scare me. But like, there's like multiples of these, and they've kind of become this thing like where we kind of see it as like a niche, unrealistic thing, but these could literally be people. And, you know, like if we're looking at it through the lens of a historical bias or like some sort of media distortion, I could see why we wouldn't even begin to fathom this, because I am the classic skeptic here. Like I raised my hand first to be like, but what if? Let's talk about what some other explanations could be besides feral people, other than Bigfoot. Bears. Bear attacks could often be misread. This is from my research. I looked up what could be misconstrued, and they said bears. Black bears and grizzlies are known to scavenge campsites, drag bodies, fully bury their prey. So it could be that the reason I can't find bodies is because a bear has buried it. This is something I learned in this podcast. I did not know that bears bury things. And that, you know, if they're trying to get to you to eat you, they might tear your clothes off. And it depends. Maybe bears have learned how to take like clothes off a little easier now. You know, they're like, very simple, just pull. And, you know, they would basically, bears are feral creatures within themselves. They're like, look at me throw this thing around, you know? So there's that. One of the things that people often hear is like, we talked about the hunter who like thought he heard his hunting partner, but then realized he was by himself, is that we hear these like voices. A lot of times people will say with feral people, they hear someone calling for help and it's like humanoid. I think also like a lot of it is the fact that like there's bodies that aren't discovered. And if they are discovered, it feels very violent and like ripped apart and very like, what the hell? And I think when we take the fact that like we're inherently afraid of the woods because we don't have this, like, we don't have the sight in the woods, right? And then you're isolated and especially at night when it's dark, just our brains just start going, what if? Like, you know, and I think back to all the times that like I've gone camping and I'm like, has there been a feral people that, especially like campgrounds, like you could think that would be easy because you wouldn't think anything of a person walking through a campground because people are meant to be in campgrounds. But like, yeah. So some things that like, why can't we find them? They think that they live in like, you were talking about in last week's episode when we were talking about Washington and we were talking about those like big holes. Feral people could live in the holes.
Yeah.
And I just think that there's also like other explanations that could kind of give maybe why there isn't feral people, but our imaginations. Think about cliffs. Like people could fall off cliffs. They land in the water takes them out. They get eaten by like animals, caves, sinkholes, things like that. Remember when we were kids and we were really afraid of like quicksand? Maybe there's actually quicksand and that we like most people don't find it, but these people do, right?
Could be.
Weather changes rapidly. Weather can be really dangerous. They just get lost off trail. They fall into like wildfires, flash floods, things like that. Things that would like change the topography of an area and then people not be able to find them. Feral people like scare the shit out of me. The fact that this could possibly be there. Ooh. It definitely like in my mind, it's really like crazy. And it's
scary.
There's so many stories. There's so many stories that like defy logic of things like that. And I'm just, it literally freaks me out. Cause I'm like,
Cause my whole thing is I can't get over when there's like the footprints or the handprints because an animal can't replicate a humanoid print. They can't.
No, they cannot. Now, one of the last part that I'm going to address as I talked earlier, or like when I did my question of this episode is it part cover up? Now, people have speculated that the National Park Service has been very aware that there are feral people living in it, which if there are, I'm sure they're aware of it, and that they are just not telling people because they need people to go to the parks. Right. And they're weighing, it's like there's a risk analysis done. And they're like, well, we're not going to tell people that they're feral people living in the wilderness. However, one of the key things is that the national parks are really underfunded. They really are. It would take a lot. Also, the other thing is that there is no national database for missing persons in national forests. So if you go missing in Yellowstone, there's no one in like Yosemite that's going to know that you went missing in Yellowstone. So the similarities and things like that. And I think this is another reason why, like, sometimes I think of like serial killers who are working, like Ted Bundy worked in national forests, like, right? Because there's just so much land out there that nobody knows. And it's all just segmented. We're a national forest. You're a national forest. There's no communication. It's kind of like how we talk about law enforcement, but we don't know how many people go. Like when they're asked, you know, the National Park Service is asked how many people go missing in parks each year. They're like, we don't know because there's no national database. There's no way to connect it all. And so it's kind of a big thing. And the national parks pay for themselves by people coming to the national parks. So it's kind of like, if we tell you, like, think about it like this, when it's bear season in Yosemite, there's a decline in people visiting Yosemite because they're like, I ain't going out there with bears. And it's also like a liability. Like if they know that there are people out there that are like feral and they tell you that there's people, they're liable for it. But if what they don't know, they can't be liable for. So it would be considered no one's fault. But I will definitely be thinking twice before I saunter into the woods again.
I'm so glad to learn about this when I no longer live in Alaska. Because
right?
Oh my God. I could totally see it up there. That would be so
Except for it gets really cold.
But if they're in like caves and stuff, like you said, and they obviously know how to build fire, and then you have to think whoever was originally there, they're going to find these solutions so they survive, and then that gets passed down. So it's like, that doesn't even matter in my opinion. It's crazy.
That's true. I just would think like they're not going to be the naked ones for sure in the Alaska wilderness.
No.
They would be wearing stuff. But yeah, if you want us to talk about, I'm open if someone is interested in hearing about specific missing persons cases in national parks, be happy to talk about them if you like have something. I wouldn't say I would look into a specific case, but I'd look into like a specific national park or a system. Like I definitely want to do an Appalachian Trail one because there's just a lot of scary shit out there, and we pretend like it's not. We're like, it's not there.
But it is.
Yeah. It is there. But yeah, if you have ever encountered anything, please let us know. We'd love to read it here on the podcast during our listeners episodes. So if you have encountered a feral person or you thought you did, let us know. We'd love to read your story. You can submit those to the podcast email at 3spookedgirls@gmail.com. This became an obsession one night, and I was like, I texted Tara. I was like, I'm doing an episode on feral people. And she's like, okay, like having no idea what it was. And then the more I talked about it, she was like, okay.
Yep. Because she told me, yes, because I'm 2 hours ahead of her. And she told me at night one day. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so scared. Because like,
right.
I live in like a rural area. So I'm like, fuck my life. They're going to come get me.
It's fine. They'd have to go through a lot of town to get to you. So I think you're okay.
For sure.
Yeah. It's fine. And then I was like, oh my God, if a feral person finds me, and I'm like, I live in a city.
You live in Sacramento, Jessica. Come on.
I know, it's fine. It's fine. It's very close to Yosemite though. So
it's intermission time, folks. Why not stop by our convenient modern refreshment stand and pick up a zesty pork barbecue sandwich or a chocolate toddy served ice cold or steaming hot? When Ian Fleming set out to create the spy protagonist of his novel Casino Royale, he wanted to give the character the most bland and nondescript name he could imagine. A name so plain vanilla that you couldn't pick it out of a lineup of one. He took the character's name from Birds of the West Indies, a book on Fleming's shelf at his Jamaican home, Goldeneye. The ornithologist who had written the book, as I'm sure you've already guessed, was named James Bond. Alternatively, when deciding on a name for the rocket scientist hero, or perhaps he's an anti-hero, of the Quatermass experiment, Nigel Neal consulted the phone book for the most unusual surname he could find. It arrived at Quatermass. Like James Bond, Sherlock Holmes, and Doctor Who's Time Lord, I'd reckon Quatermass belongs on my Mount Rushmore of modern British adventure heroes. And like Bond, Holmes, and the Doctor, part of what fascinates me about Professor Quatermass is how different actors embody the character. The variations on a theme, if you will. Only 7 or so actors have ever played Quatermass on screen. The part has been played by a combination of English, Scottish, and American actors, and only one of them ever appeared on screen as Quatermass more than once. As you can imagine, this makes for a wide variety of interpretations. The portrait these combined performances paints is an expressionistic one. And so, in my hubris, I've decided to provide my official and definitive ranking of Quatermass actors. But first, some honorable mentions.
I've always been secretly afraid that sometimes something would happen that we couldn't deal with.
Well, I'll do everything I can to help.
I don't just mean Caroon.
Come along, let's get this over you.
What we can be responsible for. 30 years ago, I'd almost decided to devote my life to land surveying in the tropics. That at least would have harmed only myself.
Reginald Tate was the first actor to portray Quatermass in the serial The Quatermass Experiment. However, I'm not including him in my official rankings because, well, all but 2 of the 6 episodes of this serial have been lost. The BBC, in its infinite wisdom, thought of television as a disposable medium and did not typically retain archival recordings of their broadcasts. I therefore feel it unfair to rank Tate based upon an incomplete performance. But from what I've seen, Tate's Quatermass was cerebral, humanistic, and tortured by his personal, moral, and ethical code, earning high praise from creator Nigel Neal. Director John Carpenter, who once collaborated with Nigel Neal for Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, noted in a Blu-ray featurette that he felt Tate was too effete and lacking a certain gravitas. I tend to agree with Carpenter, though I think his assessment is a bit harsh, but John Carpenter is not known for sugarcoating his criticisms. Tate essayed the role so well that he was asked to return for Quatermass 2, but sadly, he died of a heart attack at age 58, shortly before production of the sequel began. Enter John Robinson.
If you won't start talking, I will. Take a look at this. Be careful, it needs expert examination. It's some sort of meteorite. We saw it fall and came to examine it.
Who are you?
At this stage, I don't think that matters.
You are in a restricted area. You had no business to come here.
Let me talk to somebody in authority at that place. I'll explain when we get there.
Explain?
It was intact when it fell. That's almost unknown if it was a meteorite. It broke up as we looked at it. This man was affected. Something came from it. Gas, at any rate. Is this a military establishment?
Get those pieces.
Not just it. Don't you realize the importance of observations?
Take him.
Wait a minute. What is all?
He will be given treatment.
At that place?
He must come.
Are you arresting him?
He must. Yes.
I'm sorry, Dylan. I'll explain when we get there.
You will go.
What?
Now, while you can.
But I have no wish to. I'm going to tell whoever I have to tell that I'm responsible.
Do not try.
Primarily known for theater work, John Robinson was brought in at the last minute to replace Tate as Professor Quatermass in the BBC TV serial Quatermass 2, which has a Body Snatchers type storyline. Robinson does a serviceable job, under the circumstances, but I didn't feel it fair to rank his performance. He had very little time to prepare for the role, and purportedly had difficulty with much of the scientific terminology and techno-babble the part required him to deliver. My last honorable mention is a bit of a cheat. Dean Jagger.
How deep do you think that fissure really is, sir?
I don't know.
Now, the Major was going on about it being bottomless. He said you told him.
Did I? That was very unscientific of me.
Whatever caused that split had to have a beginning.
Had to have an end, too.
Well, surely the forces causing these surface splits just disperse.
Forces causing surface splits don't burn a man to death by radiation.
What are you getting at, sir?
Peter, I'm not getting at anything. I just don't know. But for the time being, let's assume that you're right. Now, let's not conjure up visions of nameless horrors creeping around in the night.
American actor Dean Jagger, star of X the Unknown, finds himself on the honorable mention list because he's not actually playing Professor Quatermass, though he was meant to be. Let me explain. When Hammer Films adapted the Quatermass experiment as a feature film, titled The Quatermass Experiment in the UK in order to capitalize on the film's X certificate, they found themselves with a big hit on their hands and wanted to produce their own Quatermass sequel. And so X the Unknown, get it? Another prominent X in the title, was greenlit. The only problem? Nigel Neal did not grant Hammer permission to use the character of Bernard Quatermass. That being said, this tale of a giant creeping blob which fries its victims into grotesque, steaming husks with its Chernobyl levels of radioactivity plays like a Quatermass picture in all but name, and Dean Jagger inhabits his I can't believe it's not Quatermass role with the appropriate levels of angst, compassion, and intelligence. Change the character's name and a handful of plot details, and Dean Jagger would appear much higher on this list. Okay, that's it for the honorable mentions. Let's get down to our top 5. Number 5, John Mills.
They call themselves planet people.
Oh, we know about them.
Oh, yes. They believe that somehow they're going to be taken away to another planet. It always seemed like nonsense. But it happened. Something happened. This was the second time. The first time was in another country. In Brazil.
More kids.
Everything the same. I only know one thing. We had one survivor. I was bringing her with me for tests. I've got to find her.
Yeah, this planet. What you reckon about it, eh?
Well, as a belief, it's possible. As a scientific fact, there isn't a...
Why should it be for them?
Any Disney adults out there in listener land would best know John Mills as the father of Parent Trap actor Haley Mills, and perhaps for his role in Swiss Family Robinson. He appears in the last, and by most accounts least, of the Quatermass serials. 1979's Quatermass, also known as the Quatermass Conclusion, was developed for ITV and was, I think, intended to be the start of an ongoing series of Quatermass adventures that never really got off the ground. In this serial, Quatermass, now retired from his field, roves about a savage, amoral, apocalyptic near-future London, searching for his granddaughter who, like many young people apparently, has joined the hippie-like Planet People cult, which, it turns out, is linked to an invading alien intelligence. The concept of hippies as late as 1979 seems outdated. Punks would have been more timely. And the whole affair comes off as the creative exercise of an out-of-touch old man who wakes up one morning to find the world around him unrecognizable and decides to yell at clouds, to borrow a Simpsons meme. Mills's Quatermass is a point-of-view character, a stand-in for Neil himself, I suspect, exuding lots of "you kids better get off my lawn" energy. His performance is undercut by a script that renders him as either a spectator in his own story or as someone playing second banana to a young male lead, in this case Manimal star Simon McCorkindale, in a pretty revolting 70s porn stash. I really enjoy Mills as an actor, but his Professor Quatermass is pretty passive and weak, by no fault of his own. I'm sure he was merely playing the character as written. Which brings us to number 4, Jason Fleming.
I have brought upon the earth what is possibly the most terrible thing ever known. What came out of that rocket was not a man. It had been men, a human amalgam, possessed by the thing that entered into that rocket over 4 million miles away and transformed them. It had their brains, their faculties, but over the last 3 days, it has developed the means to existence on this planet, the means to ensure that it only shall exist. The army have plans to destroy it, but should they fail, it is almost certain that every living thing on Earth will give way to this, and life, as we know it, will cease to exist.
Knowing full well that 67% of the original Quatermass experiment was lost forever, the BBC set about the task of remaking it, and they did so in the form of a TV movie performed live on April 2nd, 2005. The film was based upon Nigel Neal's original teleplay, and even though the story was condensed from a mini-series of 6 30-minute episodes down to a single 97-minute feature, it managed to show audiences, for the first time in a generation, lost scenes that were not included in Hammer's 1955 feature film. English actor Jason Fleming was cast in the title role. There's absolutely nothing wrong with Fleming's performance. His Quatermass is confident, dynamic, and cerebral. But it's not for me. I bristle at Fleming in the role because I find him too young, too lanky, and too, twitchy for the part. They have him trudging around in this big olive green trench coat the whole time, which both accentuates the actor's lankiness and gives the character an off-puttingly inappropriate military look. Fleming, typecast in my mind as someone who primarily plays Eastern European goons in pictures like Transporter 2, has always been an actor I don't particularly care for. Ironically, the cast of this live remake featured 2 actors who, for my money, would have been more suitable in the role of Professor Quatermass. The first was David Tennant, also young and lanky but better than Fleming, who, during rehearsals for Quatermass, was announced as the new Doctor for the Doctor Who revival series. The other actor was Mark Gatiss.
Does it have any resonance for today? I mean, what are the
Yeah, I mean, what we're doing is a kind of experiment on the experiment. The script is largely unchanged. It's a 2-hour version of a 6-part original, but the intention is to try and leave it intact and see if the 50s sort of milieu still works, and it does. I mean, we've changed a few references which sort of stand out, but apart from that, it's the same.
And like the original, yours is live.
Yes.
Terrifying?
Well, it's like this. Anything could happen.
It is terrifying.
Anyone who's watched Doctor Who, which he's written for and acted in, or Sherlock, a show he co-created, wrote, and starred in as Mycroft Holmes, or who has watched the bonus features on any number of British horror film releases, should be familiar with Mark Gatiss. In addition to being a skilled television writer and actor, he's also a knowledgeable film historian and a fan of the works of Nigel Neal. If they ever make more Quatermass adventures, they should cast Mark Gatiss. He'd make a Quatermass for the ages. But let's get on with our ranking. Number 3, Andrew Keir.
Ronnie, if we found that our Earth was doomed, say by climatic changes, what would we do about it?
Nothing. Just go on squabbling as usual.
Yes, but if we weren't men.
Mars is dead. Nothing there but a few scraps of lichen.
5 million years ago, it may have been very different. Suppose at that time there were living beings on it, with techniques that enabled them to visit the Earth at a time when the most highly evolved creatures here, our own ancestors, were only a type of Pliocene ape. They may have wanted to found another colony when their own world was doomed, but couldn't endure our atmosphere. So they experimented.
Experimented?
The man-apes found beside the missile were abnormal. Oh. My guess is that those were ape mutations being brought back for release on Earth. By selective breeding, atomic surgery, methods we can't guess. And returned with new faculties instilled in them. High intelligence. Perhaps something else. It'd be a way of possessing the Earth. Only a colony by proxy, but better than leaving nothing at all behind.
Surely it had to be carried out on a huge scale.
Yes, if I'm right. We've just come on a single instance. Probably an accident, a landing that went wrong, and we all died.
We've now arrived at the first official portrayal of Quatermass that I genuinely enjoy. Scotsman Andrew Keir donned the academic tweeds of Professor Quatermass in the 3rd feature film of the Hammer series, Quatermass and the Pit, which I will try to reference by its US title, 5 Million Years to Earth, in order to avoid confusion. His casting was a relief to Nigel Neal, who famously hated the actor, whom we've not yet discussed, that Keir was replacing. I've always loved this actor. He's a familiar face from several Hammer films, especially in his scene-stealing role as the vampire-hunting monk Father Shandor from Dracula, Prince of Darkness. Keir's Quatermass in 5 Million Years to Earth, investigating the discovery of an alien ship in the London Underground containing secrets that challenge mankind's conception of our place in the universe, hits all the right buttons. He's gruff, middle-aged, world-weary, thoughtful, ethical, and stubborn, even standoffish, in the face of military authority, represented in this picture by Julian Glover of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and The Empire Strikes Back fame. Keir's Quatermass has the distinction of being the first incarnation of the character to appear in color, and reprised the role once more in the 1997 BBC radio docudrama The Quatermass Memoirs. I really have no criticisms of Andrew Keir's performance, and if you ask me on a different day, I may change my mind. But today he sits at number 3 because there are 2 actors who might have done it better. I can't make up my mind which of the 2 remaining Quatermasses are my favorite. So let's just say they occupy the number 1 and number 2 slots in an as-yet-to-be-determined order. We'll start with Andre Morel.
A minute or so, no further search, please. Professor Quatermass, there's a gentleman here to see you, and he insists with me.
Ronan. Trying to stop me. I've had enough of these petty little bureaucrats. Quatermass, I had to catch you before you left.
Oh, what happened?
A bomb, an unexploded bomb turned up at the site. There's a squad of soldiers there messing around.
Oh, what can I do?
You can hurry them up. Well, you know these people. Look where we are.
My dear Roney, if I had any influence with the army, Wait a second. Breen?
Yes?
Breen, this is Dr. Matthew Roney. You'll have heard of him, the prehistoric finds at Knightsbridge.
Oh, yes.
Colonel Breen.
How are you?
Roney's having a little difficulty with the bomb disposal squad. Could you help?
Do you mean interfere?
Well, they need expert advice.
Who says?
Oh, it's a fact.
What? Dear fellow, I've had no official request. It'd be highly irregular.
Well, I suppose you had a request from me.
From you?
No, yes, a friendly one. After all, we are colleagues now.
I'll come with you. I can't promise any more than that.
Good man. I'm sure we'll get on very well together.
God damn it if I don't love Andre Morel. Every time I see a picture, and he's been in both high and lowbrow cinema, featuring Andre Morel, his presence alone bumps my rating up by at least half a star. From The Mummy's Shroud to Barry Lyndon, Morel is always an asset. Andre Morel plays the good professor in the BBC TV serial of Quatermass and the Pit. Morel's Quatermass is perhaps the most suave and gentlemanly of the bunch. He's not nearly as grumpy as Andrew Keir, or as the last actor on our list, nor as jumpy as Jason Fleming. He's as warm as John Mills without coming off as weak and impotent, but he is always magnetic and thoughtful, bringing an erudite confidence to the role. He was, indeed, the first choice to play the character in the Quatermass experiment, but had to refuse due to other commitments. Nigel Neal, I believe, was quite fond of how Morel essayed the role, and when you watch his 3rd entry in the BBC series, it's easy to see why. Before we move on, I have to say that not only is Andre Morel a superlative Quatermass, he is also, in my opinion, cinema's best Dr. Watson, alongside Peter Cushing in Hammer's The Hound of the Baskervilles. He also plays a ruthless but, as always, charming and likable villain in the thriller Cash on Demand, a hidden gem also from Hammer. All right, moving on. It's time we talk about Brian Donlevy.
Can you still bear to look at it? The sum total of our achievement up to now. 1 rocket. Crewless. Untried.
Because we daren't try it.
We're not sure of that, Graham.
Not sure of that. That nuclear motor is as faulty as...
We're not sure of that.
Listen, Quatermass, give them that story, but don't try it on me. We know that as soon as that thing left the Earth, we'd be stoking up an atomic bomb.
We could send it up without a crew, by remote control.
If you did, you'd never dare bring it back to Earth.
I intend to correct that fault. I'm going to send it up there and bring it back, not once, but 100 times. You better go get some sleep. I'm going down to the rocket base.
You know what worries me?
How am I going to make a final report about all this?
What worries me is how final can it be?
Brian Donlevy is the only actor to play Professor Bernard Quatermass on screen twice. He appeared in 2 of the 3 films of the Hammer series. First in The Quatermass Experiment, which I'll refer to by its US release title, The Creeping Unknown, to avoid confusion, and Quatermass 2. And by all accounts, Nigel Neal hated him. Now, Hammer Films was always looking to break through in the US market, and so was always chasing American financing and courting American, quote, stars to headline their movies. They needed to cast the lead in a hard sci-fi thriller proto-body horror picture. They needed a big name who could embody the thoughtful, tortured, highly ethical, and brilliant Professor Quatermass. And so they turned to Brian Donlevy, veteran of 1930s B-list gangster and spy pictures like 36 Hours to Kill and Crack Up, westerns like The Virginian and Canyon Passage, and American television, where all of the other Quatermasses were, to varying degrees, thoughtful, conflicted, and ethical. Donlevy played the rocket scientist like an Atom Age Ahab. In The Creeping Unknown, he is consumed with an unflappable ambition and stomps about, barking orders like a bulldog or a caricature of the ugly American. Nigel Neal had conceived the character as a scalpel. Donlevy, with his short, stocky physique, played him like a billy club. Donlevy is as gruff as they come, and easily the grumpiest Quatermass of the bunch. I can relate to Nigel Neal's loathing, and yet there's something appealing to Donlevy. Perhaps I enjoy him in the role because he's playing the part so against type. He's in a picture surrounded by British actors playing pipe-smoking, tweed-wearing bureaucrats and academics. And in stops Donlevy, his gruff gangster-like demeanor acting as a contrast enhancer, making Quatermass a foil to nearly every other character he encounters. And the result is pretty magnetic. Donlevy pulls your focus every time he's on screen. In Hammer's feature film adaptation of BBC's second serial, Quatermass 2, Donlevy, perhaps in response to criticism, delivers a softer performance. He still barks orders, but doesn't shout as much. And there's lots of toing and froing for him to do, so he's still a bit of an action hero, but he plays the character with more compassion, and he even allows Quatermass to be vulnerable. I actually think he's better in his second outing than in his first. It makes one wonder what actors like Andre Morell, Andrew Keir, and Reginald Tate would have done with the part if given the opportunity to make sequels. But who do you think would make a good Quatermass? Let us know in the comments. On Twitter, I once asked film critic and Nigel Neal enthusiast John Deere that question, and his answer was Jimmy Dean. Yes, the sausage guy. I think he was pulling my leg, but I can almost see it. If Brian Donlevy could pull it off, then maybe? As I said at the top of the show, I believe this to be an exercise in hubris, and it is. I don't think anyone outside of the UK can really grasp the cultural importance of this character or this series. In fact, the whole series is a statement on British cultural identity following the Second World War. But I wanted to do this ranking as a way to expose all of you out there, especially in America, to the joys of this insanely influential series. Until recently, it was very hard to see these films and serials in the US. What remains of the Quatermass Experiment television serial can be found on YouTube or Internet Archive. The same is true for Quatermass 2. If you have a region-free Blu-ray player, you can watch a fully restored print of Quatermass in the Pit in the highest quality it will likely ever be presented. The 3 Hammer films, The Creeping Unknown, Quatermass 2, 5 Million Years to Earth, and even the Quatermass in all but name film, X the Unknown, are available on Blu-ray courtesy of Kino Lorber and Scream Factory, respectively. If any of this Quatermass business piques your interest, I urge you to discover more about Nigel Neal. Not only is he a master of science fiction and horror, especially folk horror, he's also one of the greatest, if not the greatest, dramatist in the history of television. Folk horror fanatics need to seek out the Stone Tape. his ITV series Beasts, or his Moraine episode of the anthology series Against the Crowd. Hammer Files will want to consume the non-Quatermass films he wrote for Hammer, The Witches and the Abominable Snowman of the Himalayas. Neil's TV adaptations of The Woman in Black and George Orwell's 1984, starring Peter Cushing, were must-see TV before must-see TV was even a thing. And while I haven't seen it, I've heard that Neil's controversial teleplay, The Year of the Sex Olympics, basically predicted reality TV way back in 1968. I'd also highly recommend the Bergcast podcast, hosted by John Deere and Howard Ingham, which covers all things Nigel Neal with frequent diversions into the world of Quatermass and folk horror. You know, they have drive-ins and open-air movie theaters in the UK as well, but their concessions are a bit different than what you might find here in the States. With that in mind, better grab your toffee popcorn, chicken dippers, candy floss, Maltesers, chocolate buttons, and a big sparkling Tango orange while you can. That's because our friend Alicia from the podcast Truly Twisted is back to discuss the murder of Elizabeth Short, aka the Black Dahlia, in a segment for which the phrase "listener discretion advised" is most definitely applicable. That's right, folks. Act 2 of Octoberpod starts now.
On the morning of January 15th, 1947, Betty Bersinger, a young mother, was taking her 3-year-old daughter for a walk in Lemert Park. This was a neighborhood of Los Angeles previously used to house World War II veterans, but as the war had winded down, many of these lots became empty, and unfortunately, people would dump their garbage there all the time. As they were walking, Betty noticed a pale limb in the grass by the sidewalk, and initially she believed it to be a discarded mannequin. But tragically, it was the body of 22-year-old Elizabeth Short, posed grotesquely in the grass. There had been no attempt to hide her. But to this day, this is one of the biggest mysteries in true crime history, and we still do not know who her killer is. So let's talk about it today. Hello and welcome to another episode of Truly Twisted. As always, I'm your host, Alicia Watson. This story is perplexing, to say the least, which made Kadra of Perplexity, a mystery podcast, the perfect person to discuss it with. Hello, Kadra. Welcome.
Hello, Alicia. Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to get into this. I don't know if iconic's the best word, but it really is an iconic true crime case, and I haven't heard the story in a while, so it'll be good to refresh my memory and be able to actually discuss it with someone.
So I like to tell stories in chronological order, but I also want to honor Elizabeth Short because her life was taken way too soon and in the most horrific and torturous way. So I will be using her name throughout, but this case is famously known as the Black Dahlia because for a long time they actually didn't know her identity. Even though in the beginning pieces of the story, they don't know who she is, I am going to use her name though. Rather than a Jane Doe, the Black Dahlia was a nickname given by the media, likely inspired by the horror film The Blue Dahlia that came out in 1946, referencing the Jane Doe's dark hair and the lurid nature in which her murder had taken place. She was also known, allegedly, once her identity came about, to have worn black clothing quite frequently, which solidified the nickname.
Gotcha. That's always such a controversial thing in true crime cases, is like, should we or shouldn't we give this iconic kind of name to a case or to a serial killer? And there's definitely times that it's very sensationalized and ridiculous, but at the same time, it does help you remember the case.
And it is infamous, and it was meant to attract readers, and the nickname certainly stuck. So on the morning of January 15th, 1947, like I said, Betty Bersinger, a young mother, was taking her 3-year-old child for a walk. This neighborhood in Los Angeles at the time had lots of empty lots where people are going to people and dump empty garbage and all sorts of stuff because they didn't want to pay to take it to a landfill. And it was a little bit overgrown, but it was still level enough that you could see through the lots. So as they were walking, she saw a pale limb in the grass by the sidewalk of what she initially believed to be a discarded mannequin, And as we know, Kadra, it's never a mannequin. As they got closer, Betty quickly realized that this was the body of a young woman and quickly ushered her child past before calling 911. What they saw was a cleanly severed body of 22-year-old Elizabeth Short, posed grotesquely, and there was no attempt to hide her. The location likely was chosen for a reason. The empty block in the early morning hours would have allowed the killer privacy to lay her body out, but by the time that the sun came up, the sidewalk guaranteed an audience with maximum shock value.
Ugh.
Whoever did this wanted the world to see it.
I mean, that makes sense with them posing her. Like, yeah, I mean, it seems like they're very clearly trying to send some kind of message with location and posing.
Mm-hmm. Her body was cleanly cut in half at the waist, and pieces of her flesh were cut away from her body. And while she was severely mutilated, there was no blood anywhere, suggesting that the body had been thoroughly cleaned before being positioned in that spot. Her face had been mutilated with what became known as the Glasgow smile carved into her mouth. Think the Joker, but way deeper.
Oh my God.
And sadly, these were found to be done before she actually died and was related to her cause of death, which I will get into. So Elizabeth suffered. But let's talk about her for a moment. She was born on July 29th, 1924, and was one of 5 daughters born to her parents, Cleo and Phoebe, in Boston, Massachusetts. Cleo worked building miniature golf courses until the 1929 stock market crash, and the family sadly lost all of their savings.
Oh, that's awful.
In 1930, his car was found abandoned on the Charleston Bridge, and it was presumed that he had completed suicide, although his body was never found.
This is the father?
Yes. In order to provide for the family, Phoebe began working as a bookkeeper, and when Elizabeth was 15, she underwent lung surgery. She had suffered frequently from bronchitis and severe asthma attacks, which, girl, I can relate. And the doctor suggested that the family move to a milder climate to help with her breathing.
So is this when they would go into California?
No, actually. Elizabeth spent winters with her family friends in Miami, Florida for the next 3 years.
Oh,
Unfortunately, being a single mother of 5, their family couldn't afford to relocate. So this was a solution that Phoebe had come up with in order to help her daughter, kind of heal and thrive when it wasn't the best condition for her, and still have her be able to be a part of the family. So
yeah, that makes sense. There's actually a decent amount of true crime cases that I've covered where things like this come up, where the parent is struggling, going through like a really hard time, and it's hard to imagine having to like give your child away essentially to someone else. But I have heard that quite a bit of like just wanting them to be safe and in a better situation. So they'll
sometimes
go somewhere else for a
thriving
while.
is better. In late 1942, Phoebe Short received a letter from Cleo, of whom the family had originally thought was dead for the last 12 years, so the father.
Whoa.
He wrote an apology letter stating that he had started a new life in California.
Shut up.
So he faked his own death and ran away from his family. Rude.
Whoa. That is like that is like my worst nightmare. I mean, that you hear things like that in every true crime case as a theory of like, if it's a disappearance, they wouldn't start a new life. And you're always like, oh, that's ridiculous. This guy actually did that.
And I get it. The familial pressures that men experienced back then. And if you lost all your money, that's one of the biggest causes of like family annihilators. Like usually it's something financially related that takes place. So I guess this is the lesser of two evils, but it still had to have been devastating for this family, especially Phoebe. So Elizabeth dropped out of high school, and instead of going to Florida that next December, she decided to go to California and relocated to Vallejo to live with her father. Though that reunion was short-lived, as they argued often, leaving Elizabeth to move out in early 1943. So this is how she ended up in California.
I mean, yeah, there has to be a lot of unresolved trauma from what he did to his family.
And also, respect on her part for wanting to give him a chance and go and see him.
Right, yeah, because he didn't deserve it.
Agreed. So Elizabeth was just 18 at this point, and she took a job as a desk clerk at Camp Cook and moved in with a presumably kind army sergeant for a period of time that was willing to take her in, although he quickly became abusive towards her, and that gesture of taking her in wore off. We don't know much about Elizabeth in terms of personality, but given her life up to this point, we know that she was resilient. So she moved out yet again. Now mid-1943, Elizabeth moved to Santa Barbara, but she was arrested for underage drinking on September 23rd at a local dive bar. So, she was 18, so she's technically an adult, but juvenile authorities ordered that it would be likely better for her to just go back to Massachusetts and be with her mother instead of, serving any jail time for this misdemeanor, essentially.
I gotcha. Okay,
They're like, maybe you're not ready to be on your own out here. Maybe go back home to your mom. But instead, she went to the family friends in Florida instead.
Okay.
I get it. She likes the warmth. But she did visit her family and mother in Boston often.
Well, and I mean, it sounds like she spent a lot more time in Florida. I mean, she would still go visit her biological family and seasonally. So, but I mean, this was probably honestly maybe, I don't want to speculate, but it sounds like she might have been closer with the people in Florida.
Yeah, and just like a better situation for her. I mean, also, she's probably thinking she's going to go home to Boston and get in a lot of trouble. So,
makes sense.
That would be my guess if I had been arrested.
Yeah.
But while living in Florida, Elizabeth met an Army Air Force officer named Matthew Michael Gordon Jr., and the two fell in love. They had this typical romance of the 1940s. Elizabeth stated that he had proposed marriage in a letter while he was recovering from a plane crash injury in India. So she had received this letter from India.
Jeez.
And she had allegedly accepted the marriage proposal, but tragically he died during a second crash on August 10th, 1945.
Oh, come on.
So the two never got to be together.
Yeah, this poor girl can't catch a break. That's horrible. So I'm assuming he flew planes then for the Army. He was a pilot?
Guessing so. Yeah.
Okay, because to not be a pilot and be in two plane crashes, you're in the military, but that would be very, very unlucky. Man, I feel so bad for her.
Yeah. In July of 1946, Elizabeth went back to California to Los Angeles to visit an old Air Army Force friend named Joseph Fickling, who was stationed in Long Beach. Elizabeth had gotten a job serving and rented a room behind the Florentine Gardens nightclub on Hollywood Boulevard. According to some people who knew her, Elizabeth opted to stay in California in hopes of becoming a film star. She definitely had the look, fair complexion, dark hair, green eyes. She was stunning. But tragically, she never got that opportunity before her murder. On January 9th, 1947, Elizabeth came home after a brief trip to San Diego to visit a man that she was allegedly having an affair with named Robert Manley. And I should say he was the one having an affair.
I was going to say, wait, did she get married? Did I miss something?
No, he
okay,
was
got
married. Yeah.
Okay. Man.
And according to Robert, he dropped Elizabeth off at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles, where she was going to be meeting with one of her sisters visiting from Boston.
And where did he live?
He lived in San Diego, California.
Okay, so that's a couple hours from Long Beach.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So they made the drive back. He dropped her off. And some of the Biltmore employees said that they saw Elizabeth using the lobby telephone, and then she was seen later that same evening at the Crown Grill cocktail lounge down the street from the Biltmore.
Okay, and no one saw her with a man?
No. No one saw her with anybody or confirmed that she was with her sister or they just said that they saw her. No one's for certain who she was with.
Got it.
That is where Elizabeth's known actions end. Sometime between January 9th and January 15th, Elizabeth would experience the unthinkable, bringing us to this horrific discovery of her body on January 15th.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's 6 days. That's a really big gap.
Yeah. They call it the missing week. They actually For days, like police bulletins went up everywhere trying to find any information of like any more movements, because from the time that her body was found and completely drained of blood and posed there, that would have taken enough time to believe that she was at least dead up to 10 hours prior to her body being discovered, which would be the 14th. So sometime in those 5 days, she was taken by somebody.
Wow. Yeah. And that's kind of surprising that, I mean, at this point in the story, at least, that there's not really any eyewitness testimony for 6 days, because this sounds like a really busy area, and she is a very memorable looking person, you know?
And she had a lot of friends. Like, she was known to be very social and like frequent cocktail lounges and have she loved to have fun. She was a young 22-year-old girl living in downtown LA. Of course she wanted to. So it's just like, how did nobody connect with her in that time period? Which leads me to believe that she was taken closer to the 9th.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was going to say is, like, at the same time, there very well could have been a situation where she was kidnapped or lured somewhere and then like held there, and she very clearly was like very slowly and methodically tortured in a horrific manner and then cleaned, indicating she was killed at a different location. So, I mean, it's possible she was held somewhere for days, which could make sense with nobody seeing her.
Yeah, but you don't want to believe that, because that's even more horrific than what she's already experienced.
Of course, right.
So get ready to be a little bit mad here, because I don't think investigators did a great job with this case.
Shocker.
The LAPD
Sorry.
is historically problematic, so...
Yes. Sorry, as someone who has covered true crime for the last several years, I have heard way too many stories where law enforcement didn't secure a scene properly. And like, yes, I know that we're in the 40s, but still.
It's incredibly upsetting, especially with, like, they actually, during my research, I didn't include this in my notes, but the LAPD actually underwent a trial, I believe in the early 1950s, they were scrutinized in a jury, like by a jury, in their inability to solve certain cases against women and children within like a 10-year period. Like, they had so many unsolved cases that they were under trial. And Elizabeth's case came up in that list. But I'm just like, do better.
I've heard of things like that before, like in other cases I've covered, and it's always so disheartening, because these are the people that you're calling and expect to do their jobs and protect you. And don't get me wrong, there are people who absolutely do, but in the cases where they don't, it's really hard to get over that, you know?
Right. And in working with families, it's like you see how often their own resources are the ones being used to investigate their missing loved one. Not even just in California, like in all states, in all countries, it feels like in some cases. So it's just
and this is not a small town. This is not a place where you're going to be running into like, oh, well, there's very limited resources here.
No,
blah,
they
blah, blah.
had the resources.
They would have plenty of resources in LA, and I bet the crime rates were high there too. So yeah, that's disappointing.
Wild. So reporters showed up to the scene before detectives did, and nothing was properly taped off or protected. It was an absolute shit show of an investigation, if we're being honest. So apparently there was a heel print and tire tracks found near Elizabeth's body, and a quote-unquote cement sack containing watery blood.
Whoa.
Don't overthink that too much like I did, because initially I was like, what the and then I realized the cement sack, like those like paper bags that have like like a lined wrapper in it that carry cement before you get it wet.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Like a paper sack, kind of. I read that as a cement sack, and I'm like, huh?
No, that threw me off, because that's not really a sentence you hear often, that phrasing. But okay. I mean,
that is how it was reported, so that is how I'm presenting it. And it was unclear whether or not that blood was tested and believed to have belonged to Elizabeth either. But presumably so. Like, I think that when the killer got there, he had some extra cleaning to do after moving her body a little bit more and wiping her down, and that's what was like watery blood, is my thought process to that. Because otherwise, why is that there?
And I know that we had very limited forensic stuff back then, but you said they did not test the blood?
No, but presumably it did belong to Elizabeth. Part of the shit show that is this investigation.
Right. You have to be thorough and stuff like this. You have to be sure.
It was it was identified in several articles that photographs were taken of like the footprint and the tire tracks and stuff as well, but those photos don't exist anywhere, which leaves more people to believe than not that was never photographed on scene.
Oh, interesting. Well, and that you said the media also got there before the police did, so who's to say that heel print and tire track is from the killer?
Exactly.
Yeah.
An autopsy of Elizabeth's body was done the next day, noting ligature marks on her ankles, wrists, and neck, and an irregular laceration on her right breast. She also had lacerations on her forearms and the lower left side of her chest. Her body had been cleanly cut in a technique called a hemicorporectomy, and it was developed in the 1930s as an effort to remove all lower organs and genitalia and basically reroute the spinal cord so that people that were, for example, severed in the war could still live depending on the extent of their injuries.
Oh my God.
I know.
That's horrific.
It is horrific.
And
like her organs were like her bowel, like her intestines and stuff were like tucked under her buttocks. So it wasn't like properly done, but that was believed to have been the technique that this person was trying to do.
Well, first of all, so you said they did it in such a way where she would still be alive.
Yes.
With that
so
technique.
The person, but she was cut post-mortem. We do know that.
Interesting.
The cuts on her body, the way that like flesh is cut after somebody dies, looks different than when they're alive. Yeah. So they believe that all of these like torturous cuts on her body had happened while she was still alive, but her torso being cut from her legs happened after she had died.
But it being so cleanly cut like that, I mean, that makes me think that this person worked in the medical field somehow, or like mortician, or I mean,
yeah,
there's clues here with this.
For sure. That's like one of the biggest pieces of evidence.
And then the ligatures, did they, and again, I know time period, I don't know how much they would know about this, but has anyone ever, because they took pictures too, I'm assuming, have they ever looked at the ligatures to see like how old they looked, like how long it looked like she
the
had been tied
bruising
up?
on her?
Yeah, like if it was like days old,
there
for
was
example.
No report on like how long it believed that. They just know that she had been restrained in some way.
That would be helpful because
bruising,
like stages, like different stages of bruising. So
some of the bruising though did indicate that she was basically strung up post-mortem, and that was a way of like draining her of her blood as well.
God,
but she was
like
initially restrained, so she had 2 sets of bruises.
Like a
it's
freaking
horrible.
animal.
Yeah, like an animal. Yeah,
that is so sick. Wow. Well, and so that also makes me think that this person would have had a very specific kind of structure to do this in. I mean, to string someone up, to drain them of their blood, you're not doing this in like an apartment complex, you
Correct.
know? Wow.
And Kadra took the words right out of my notes. This person that killed Elizabeth, or at least helped in the cover-up, had to have some sort of medical knowledge.
Yeah, well, and I would also think like access to some kind of warehouse or abandoned building, something with drain. Wow.
Yeah.
Or a very remote location outdoors.
Yeah, for sure. She had lacerations and bruising on the side of her face and head, suggesting that she had been hit multiple times, and her official cause of death is listed as hemorrhaging from the lacerations to her face and the shock from the blows to her head and face.
Whoa. Okay.
So that was the final blow for her, and that's horrible.
And so are they thinking like a weapon was used to hit her face then, and not like fists?
Yes. It was a blunt force. It was listed as a blunt force object. Like, I can't even imagine the pain and terror in her last moments of her life. And then, like I said earlier, the severing of her body had happened post-mortem, thankfully. And her body had also been cleaned, leaving behind no trace of the person responsible, which is my theory of what this weird, watery bag of blood was.
Well, and the other thing with that, too, is with her getting I wrote it down, hemacorporectomy. Is that how you say it? Hemacorporectomy. So with her getting that would also, and again, time period, but that would erase any signs of sexual assault. So, like, with the crime being how it is, that does seem like it could have been very sexual in nature, but we don't know because she was cut away.
Her anal cavity was slightly dilated, according to her autopsy report, which investigators thought that maybe that could have meant she was sodomized.
God, poor woman. This is horrible. Really, girl. I mean, she was so young.
22, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So Elizabeth was then identified by her fingerprints being in the system from her 1943 underage drinking arrest. A journalist had initially contacted Phoebe Short to ask some questions about her daughter, stating that Elizabeth had won a beauty contest. And then after several follow-up questions, the reporter was like, "What do I do?" And then told her that, "No, your daughter has actually been murdered." Phoebe didn't believe it until she had received confirmation from the Los Angeles Police Department, but that is horrible, and those reporters should be ashamed.
Okay, I was about to say, can I say the F word on this show?
Yes,
Because
on this, guests are allowed to swear.
Okay, I'm sorry. I feel like this is an appropriate time. I know sometimes people get upset about cursing, but that is so up. Are you kidding? That is disgusting. That is the part of media that I hate. And this is a time in California, because I remember I covered the Chateau Marmont. This is a time in California where the paparazzis were, and I mean they're still terrible now, but just absolutely ruthless, saying and doing the most horrific things to get a rise, get a reaction out of people, get the first story, blah, 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 to trick the mom of this woman like that. Oh, she won a beauty contest. Oh, actually, she was murdered. Hearing that over the phone as well from a complete stranger. You have totally ruined this woman's life.
100%. Like, it's just disgusting behavior. Like that, and like people that falsely confess to crimes or like contact families and like torment them afterwards. Like, these are all among the worst people in existence, in my opinion.
Wow.
So 3 days later, a manila envelope arrived addressed to the Los Angeles Examiner and other Los Angeles papers with the words cut carefully from newspapers. The envelope contained Elizabeth's birth certificate, business cards, photographs with names written on pieces of paper, and an address book with the name Mark Hansen embossed on the cover. The packet had been carefully cleaned with gasoline, but despite the sender's efforts, several partial fingerprints were lifted from the envelope and sent to the FBI for testing. However, the prints were compromised in transit and could never properly be analyzed. Another fuck up in this investigation.
Are you kidding?
Yeah. I wish I was.
Wow. Sorry, that's extremely enraging, but I'm also wondering about the Mark Hansen thing. They were taken to the FBI for analysis. I'm wondering if it was like the LAPD was delivering it, or like, I'm wondering who messed that up. But
yeah.
Wow.
Police created a public notice asking for any information or sightings of Elizabeth between January 9th, like I told you earlier. But like we are thinking, I think she was held somewhere for a period of time, because there's no way that nobody would have seen or heard from her in that time period. That same day, a black suede shoe and a handbag were found in an alley garbage about 6 miles away from the crime scene. They too had been carefully cleaned, leaving behind no fingerprints. And Mark Hansen, the owner of the address book, was found and interviewed and admitted to being a friend of Elizabeth's. He had stated that on several instances that he had tried to take her on a date or be more than a friend, in which she had rejected his advances, leaving investigators to think that that was a motive for possible murder.
Sure.
But he was cleared of any involvement after interviews with police and a concrete alibi. But he did positively identify the shoe and the handbag as belonging to Elizabeth and being among the items that she was last seen wearing when she was spotted in the Biltmore Hotel. So,
sorry, are we not shocked that a man was able to identify that a handbag and shoes belonged to Elizabeth?
A woman? I know. I am a little shocked by that as well.
Like, never in my life, anyone I've ever dated, would they remember what I was like. I always think about that. If I like disappeared and the police were like, what was she wearing? They wouldn't remember.
Or like if they were like, did this belong to Kadra? He'd be like, probably.
Yeah,
he had a lot of bags.
Wow. So he must have really been obsessed to seriously to like be able to identify.
Mitten.
Okay. I'm still very sus of him, but do we know what the concrete alibi was?
No, it didn't. That's all the articles just said. Was
See, that's the thing though, is I feel like sometimes cops are just like, it's airtight. There's no way. And I'm like, okay, but like, did you
But
actually...
people lie all the time for alibis. People's own mothers will be like, oh no, they were with me all night when they killed somebody. Like
100%. Yeah. So I want to know how corroborated this actually was, because this is the 40s. It's not like we have security footage putting him.
Yeah, there's no CCTV. Yeah.
No. Okay.
On January 26th, another letter was received by the examiner, this time handwritten, and it read, here it is, turning in Wednesday, January 29th, 10 a.m. Had my fun at police. Black Dahlia adventure. End quote. The letter also named the location in which the killer was allegedly supposed to turn himself in. Police waited at the location on January 29th in the morning, but the alleged killer never appeared. Instead, at 1 p.m., the examiner office has received another cut-and-paste style letter which read, quote, I have changed my mind. You would not give me a square deal. Dahlia killing was justified, end quote.
No, it actually wasn't justified. And also, this is like giving Zodiac.
Put a pin in that thought.
Okay, what a loser.
Elizabeth's murder became a media sensation with all sorts of rumors circulating about who she was and how she lived her life. Several false confessions were made to police, and they underwent many hoax calls.
God.
Still, though, the popularity of the case only put more pressure on police to solve her murder.
I bet. Good.
750 investigators from the LAPD and other departments were assigned in various stages of Elizabeth's investigation. But to this day, her killer remains unknown.
Wow. I don't know if I've ever heard of a case that involved that many members of law enforcement. Yeah, wow. Do you know how long they looked at it for before they were like, okay, we can't do anything else?
Well, by February of 1947, they were stating that they had hit a wall, like that same year.
Okay.
Like within a month, they were like, we have no leads. Like none.
Okay.
After interviewing the two men that, you know, Robert, who had dropped her off at the Biltmore Hotel, and Mark, who was presumably her friend, and she had his address book, there was no other leads. That February, the LAPD admitted this, and they issued a warrant to the University of the Southern California Medical School, which was the closest to where Elizabeth had been discovered, requesting a list of the program's students, and background checks were conducted, as well as some interviews taking place. But the police were no closer to finding their killer. But that was the biggest piece of evidence, is that whoever had done this had medical knowledge in some way.
Right. So it makes sense because it's so close by. They're like, okay, let's look at people who work here and like students.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Now, Kadra and I could be here for an entire second episode talking about the false confessions and possible connections created over the years to other killers. But I am just going to talk about the top theories as they stand today. But as always, I want to know your guys' opinions too, so please feel free to send me a message on social media, comment on the poster episode, or email me at itstrulytwisted@gmail.com. So the first suspect was Norman Chandler. He was the publisher for the Los Angeles Times between 1945 and 1960.
Okay.
After retiring from the LAPD, a former police detective named Steve Hodel published a true crime book called Black Dahlia Murder, A Genius for Murder. In it, he outlines many of the details of the investigation and presents his own theory. He believes that his own father, Dr. George Hodel, killed Elizabeth Short.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. As soon as you said Steve Hodel, I was like, wait, so what's the relationship?
Yeah, so his own son believes that his father could be capable of doing this and possibly was involved. And in addition to Steve Hodel's theory, it was revealed that that he had wiretapped his dad's home and obtained a recorded conversation with him and an unidentified visitor saying, "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia, they couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary because she's dead. They thought that there might be something fishy. Anyway, now they may have figured it out, killed her. Maybe I did kill my secretary," end quote. Okay, so now you've possibly killed 2 people?
Yeah, what? Have we checked on this secretary? What the hell?
If they did, I don't know.
Or is he just being sarcastic? Like, that's so ridiculous. That's like saying I killed my secretary. Do you know what I mean?
He could have been being facetious.
Tone makes a big difference. Like, I would like to hear that.
But that is allegedly a direct quote from the book. But again, before interviews could take place after this came out, he did pass away of cancer.
Huh. Yeah, I'm still not convinced about him. I mean, context is really, really important, and we don't really have anything on him. I wouldn't even say we have circumstantial. It's literally like a rumor at this point. Again, read the book. I don't know, but
additional damning evidence in the book is apparently one of George's daughters named Tamar accused him when she was 14 of sexually molesting her. And despite 3 witnesses testifying against the abuse, he was acquitted of that crime in December of 1949.
That's unfortunately not surprising.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah, it is horrible. This prominent doctor did this to his kid and he gets off for it? Like, no.
Yeah, I mean, sex crimes, even now, we have a hard time getting anyone to take them seriously, but especially back then, and him being a prominent doctor.
And white man.
They probably were like, she's crazy. She made it up. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that proves he's a piece of shit, but that doesn't prove that he's a murderer.
Or that he ever even knew Elizabeth.
Yeah.
But the medical knowledge, proximity, and, this theory is possible, but it doesn't hold any weight to me. Like, I can't say for certain that this is true. And again, once I read the book, I will absolutely have Kadra on for a bonus follow-up because I'm curious.
Sure.
My listeners, if anybody has read it, please let me know if I have not included anything damning in there and I'm just wasting my time.
Yeah, well, and I think you said you're focusing on like really popular theories, right?
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. I have a favorite theory, but I don't know if it holds any more weight than any of the ones that we have right now. So,
okay.
I'm curious. The 1951 suspect list by the LAPD lieutenant named James B. Jemison included a man named Dr. Patrick Shane O'Reilly. He was an orthopedic surgeon in Los Angeles during the 1940s. He was considered a suspect because of his association with 2 of Elizabeth Short's friends, including Mark Hansen, and having physically assaulted his secretary in 1939.
The one that he was making jokes or something about killing, allegedly?
Oh, no, not...
Oh, that was the other guy.
That
Sorry,
was George Hodel.
See, this is why I write names down. I can't keep the stuff straight.
But
okay.
According to this assault against his secretary in 1939, he surgically removed part of her right breast, similarly to the mutation that had been done to Elizabeth Short's body. But again, nothing was ever proven.
I mean, that's the best thing I've heard so far, though, like as far as theories go. And not that, you know what I mean? That's not a great thing by any means. That's horrific.
No. But like the mutilation, the attack, it shows anger, it shows a tendency towards violence. He's in the same circle as her.
Well, yeah, exactly. Oh,
and he has medical knowledge.
Can we back up for a second? He surgically removed a woman's breast?
His secretary, when he attacked her, he cut her breast.
And this man is just walking around?
I think he did serve time for that assault, but I didn't dig too far into it other than the fact that had occurred. Like,
I mean, that's very clear that he is like a sadistic, sexually motivated individual.
Correct.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Patrick Shane O'Reilly. Okay.
Patrick Shane O'Reilly. He was on the suspect list that was released by one of the top lieutenants after he retired. So I'm curious to know what had come about of that.
Yeah, like I want to know how they investigated him.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, like the way that the investigation had gone thus far, like I don't know how these interviews were being done. I don't know how thorough they actually were in looking into these people. But this is the most damning one to me right now.
Yeah, by far.
Because this is like, it shows proof that he could have potentially known her being in the same circle.
Yeah, I mean, statistics alone, what are the chances, number one, that you get murdered? And number two, that you have a man in your circle who has
with medical knowledge that attacks women.
Yeah, and very specific and similar to how she was attacked. I'm sorry, like the chances are very slim.
Yeah.
Wow.
But taking that little pin out of your Zodiac comment, this was the rabbit hole that I went on while you were waiting for me.
Okay, yes, we had to start our recording a little late because Alicia was like, hold on, Kadra, I just went down this rabbit hole. Because I wrote these notes
a little while ago, and I always like to double check. Like, maybe something catastrophic has occurred in the last month where this has been solved. So I wanted to look and see, you know, what else had happened. And I saw an article from December of 2025. Where an internet sleuth named Alex Babner believes that the Zodiac Killer and the killer of Elizabeth Short are the same person.
Okay.
They both Vallejo, California. Just saying. Both in the same area.
Okay.
According to Alex Babner, he believes that Marvin Margolis is the Zodiac Killer and the killer of Elizabeth Short. He was a pre-med student and a World War II corpsman, so he would have had medical knowledge and experience handling bodies. He lived under a number of aliases and was questioned by police but was never charged. He had initially lied about knowing Elizabeth, but apparently they had lived together during a short time before her death, according to mail records.
They lived together?
Yeah.
Weird. Okay, and we don't know if they had any kind of romantic relationship?
No. My guess is...
But in this time period, I don't know why else, you know? I mean, I don't know the age difference between these people, but...
Yeah, seems strange for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, that would be very, very taboo back then.
You know, she did have a lot of male friends as well. They could have just been friends and roommates. Who knows?
I don't know. I feel like... I mean, it could have been different, but like this is before the hippie movement. This is the 40s. Okay.
It's
That's
weird for sure. And she has had a history of living with other men. Like there was the army sergeant that abused her. Like she had lived with men in the past. So that's not crazy.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I'm just thinking that I'm thinking romance could have been a factor there. I don't know.
I feel like this had to have been a crime. Like, who could do this to a person unless you're an absolute sadist? Like,
right? Yeah. Are you saying you think it could have been like a crime of passion, like someone who had
been a crime of passion,
connection to her? Yeah.
And then if the person had medical knowledge and was sadistically curious, maybe that's why he cut her in half. Maybe he was trying to hide evidence of sexual assaults, and he wanted to put on a show as his final, like, look what I did. I don't know. Maybe it was some sort of message to other women, like, if you're going to behave like she rumoredly did, that this could be what happened to you. Like, I don't know. It's disgusting either way. But allegedly they lived together, according to mail records. Now, according to Alex Babner, the 1970s Zodiac note that was sent to the Chronicle says, "My name is blank," with a series of symbols and letters. The hidden code, according to him, apparently states that his name is Marvin Merrill, which is one of the names that Marvin Margolis was using shortly after Elizabeth Short was murdered. Supporters of Alex Babner point to Marvin's medical training as a Navy corpsman, his documented psychological instability after he had been in combat, and a disturbing sketch that he drew in 1992 shortly before his death. The drawing depicts a mutilated woman labeled Elizabeth with the word Zodiac allegedly hidden in the shading.
Whoa. That's interesting, too, because I just so happened to write down the year that book was published about the other theory with Steve Hodel, the Hodels, and that's the same year that book came out.
Yeah. Crazy.
And so it was a picture he drew of her?
It's of a woman who was grotesquely mutilated, and it says Elizabeth underneath.
I wonder if the woman looked similar to her.
And I've never seen the photo, and I did try and find it. I'm guessing it's somewhere in evidence, but
but it said Zodiac,
and it says Zodiac allegedly hidden in shading under the photo, like shading in the photo. Apparently,
wow.
It looks like
I want to see this picture.
I do too.
I'm so confused now because I was so like, there's no way it's not Patrick, but now I'm really confused.
I know. This is why it's fun to talk about.
Because the fact that like the Marvin Merrill name is another name he was using, I mean, what are the chances? That's a very distinct name, you know? And he was in the same area. Zodiac was operating in the same area.
Yeah, just later. But it seems strange to me. Like, yes, I mean, the two crimes happen so close to each other, and it is very possible. But I don't know how somebody goes from horrifically carving a young woman, which, I mean, he did allegedly live with her, so maybe that was the crime of passion. Maybe that was, you know, a separate crime to the Zodiac crimes. Because as you know, the Zodiac killer killed people on Lover's Lane. If he was so distraught by this, you know, lovelorn not working out, he killed Elizabeth Smart and then went on to be an angry middle-aged man to kill people in love? Maybe.
Well, and I mean, this was a highly publicized case. So the other thing I'm wondering is if the Zodiac took some inspiration from Black Dahlia and it was a different guy.
Yeah, for sure. It very well could be. And I mean, we know that Arthur Lee Allen has been listed as the prime suspect of the Zodiac killer, but again, we don't know for sure. But according to Rick Jackson, a former LAPD officer, he believes that Alex Babner's theory holds some weight. He says that there are too many links between the two, and there's an overwhelming amount of circumstantial evidence that he left behind. End quote. So I think that this is something that they're going to now be looking into and that we might see future updates on. Who knows? Or maybe, I mean, I know Alex Babner said that he used AI to help solve the like the letters and symbols that were written by the Zodiac. But I mean, like how many, like, it's just such a specific name, like you said. So
I don't love that. I don't love either. That is how he figured that out. I'm very anti-AI, but
I am too.
Okay.
So, but just something to note. I'm here to present all the information.
I mean, well, and there's experts saying the theory holds weight, so I'm not going to discount it. It's definitely something that I will be looking into more. And I need to see this
drawing that he did. This, I don't know. Cases where like they're writing the police and it's like old-timey vibes, I'm just fascinated with. I don't know why.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's something even more fascinating about
mystery.
Older true crime cases. There's something even more fascinating about it because, like you said earlier, they had such limited resources, and it always seems like in those cases specifically, there were so many horrible people living in one area at the same time. Like, I don't know. It always seems like in those
sometimes.
Yeah, what are the chances all these horrible people live in one area?
But that is the Elizabeth Short case as it stands today. We don't know who her true killer is or if that person is still alive at this point. It feels unlikely to me that they're still alive, but I know that this story has haunted me from a young age and that something this horrific and sensationalized could possibly go unsolved. She deserved so much better from the world, from the LAPD, from every situation here, because to me, this case felt solvable and there were so many missteps along the way. But those are the most plausible theories and people, in my opinion, from what I saw on the internet, even though some of them are very loose, some of them are very strong that make us question really who could have possibly done it. But Elizabeth is buried in the Mountain View Cemetery in Oakville, California. Apparently, she gets many visitors and offerings at her gravesite. And I do really hope that this new technology that we have today will one day help us get her case solved. So now I'm curious, my love, what are your favorite theories? What are your final thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, in cases like this, you have to go through, as Jules said on my show recently, the spinny wheel of theories, where it's like you're throwing everything out there. But by far, the things that have the most weight to me, I would say the Zodiac theory, and then also Patrick Shane O'Reilly, because he had that personal connection, and we know that he assaulted a woman in a very similar fashion.
And that he had medical knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, if you want my personal opinion, I'm still looking at him the most just because he knew her personally.
Me too.
And I mean, the Zodiac used many names. I'm wondering if maybe this Patrick guy could have, who knows, maybe he could have been the Zodiac. I don't know. But one thing I want to come back to. So her shoe and her purse were found. Have those, do they still have those? Have those items been lost? Have they ever been tested?
As far as I know, they're still in evidence, but they were tested, and that's how they know that they were cleaned, because they weren't able to pull anything from it.
Okay, I'm just wondering, like, more modernly, if they had been able to get any kind of, like, DNA off of them, because the resources back then forensically would have been very different than what we have now. Yeah.
I agree. As far as I know, nothing has been tested that they have had from back then today.
Or the letters, all the letters they got.
But I feel like they need to.
That's possible. I mean, there's things that sit in evidence lockers or sealed envelopes for decades and decades and don't get tested because they, quote unquote, don't have the resources.
Yeah, and I think that because of how much time has passed in this case, I think that the LAPD are forced to look at newer cases now and aren't giving the resources to the Black Dahlia case.
Yeah.
But her case record is still stated as open, so.
Okay. Yeah. So do you know if it's them who have the evidence still in possession? Because sometimes it gets handed over to like the DOJ or someone else.
Mm-hmm. As far as reported, yes, they do still have it. So, and they
can only hope
they do. Like, there's an active case number for her. Somebody could still submit a tip if they wanted to, but
wow.
I just
don't
know.
You said, it's highly I mean, this guy would be extremely old at this point. There's no way the killer's alive. I mean, statistically, they would have been at least in their 20s, and it was in 47, right, that this happened. So, yeah, the guy's long dead. It'd have to be a distant relative or a descendant or somebody that would come forward. But
yeah, which is what makes
happen.
All these books of people claiming that their parents did it really interesting, but it also makes me sad because I don't want her case to be unsolved. Like, I want it to be solved, but
yeah, no, and it, like you said, it does.
Hard.
Well, but like you said, it does feel solvable, and it's one of those cases where if things would have been in the investigation handled better, then we might have a different outcome.
I wish, like, honestly, it's so infamous. There's so many theories on the internet. Like, maybe somebody out there, like Alex Babner, does have the right theory that we just, I don't know, need to take seriously. I hope that they look deeper into that, though, because I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those cases you could have an entire podcast just about the Black Dahlia. It's unfortunate the way that the media handled this case, and I feel really bad for her mother as well.
Yeah, her mom did, as far as I know, move to California shortly after her daughter's murder to be close to her grave, which I think is really sweet.
That is, yeah.
Like, you know, we talk about victims as being victims, but like their family members are victims as well. They're like the layers of pain behind the story are so vast. And I think that it's really important to tell stories in a tasteful way that 1947 LA was not doing, and even in some cases today aren't handled appropriately, and it makes me sad. And this case is so daunting because people are so obsessed with it, so I hope that I did it justice for my listeners.
No, I always appreciate how you cover these cases. I think focusing on the facts and the victim is the most important thing.
And in the meantime, remember, you are wanted, you are loved, and you deserve to be here. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Stick around after the credits for a brief word from some of our fellow indie podcasters, creators, and friends. There may even be some bloopers, outtakes, and bonus content as well.
If you want to hang out with us on social media, you can do so by heading over to Facebook, Instagram, Threads, all the places on the internet that has an at something something. We are there, and we are at 3 Spooked Girls. Also, if you would like to interact with Tara and I or other like-minded spooksters, head over to our Facebook group, 3 Spooked Girls Official. It's fun. We also have a Patreon. If you didn't know, it is patreon.com/3 Spooked Girls. For little as $1, you get a bonus episode each month, and then after that, there are other tiers that have other things like $5 and up, get ad-free episodes the day before. Also, if you want more Tara and Jessica and you're like, where can I get it? We have a second podcast. It's called The Social Seance Society. It is basically like Tara and I's brainchild that just kind of like lives on the internet. Check it out. They're pretty great.
So I host Perplexity, a mystery podcast, new episodes every Wednesday, and it's all things mysterious. You can check me out anywhere you get your podcasts. I'm also on YouTube, Perplexity, a mystery podcast.
Looking for your next true crime podcast? Then consider checking out my show, Truly Twisted, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at It's Truly Twisted.
You have been listening to Octoberpod. Octoberpod is produced, edited, and directed by Edward October. The series co-producers are MJ McAdams and Amber Jordan. Logo and banner graphics by Jessica Good. Edward October character design by Nick Calavera. Select still photography courtesy of unsplash.com. Select music cues by Dr. Dreamchip and various other stock music and sound effects courtesy of freesound.org. Music from Bigfoot Apocalypse and Thorax, theme from Octoberpod, composed by Nico Vitezi. All other images, music, and FX cues, except where noted, are sourced from within the public domain. Follow us on YouTube at Octoberpod Home Video, on Instagram, and the app I still call Twitter at Octoberpod VHS, and on TikTok and Blue Sky at Octoberpod. Or find us and all of our links on the World Wide Web at octoberpodvhs.com. For business inquiries or story submissions, email octoberpod@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this program, we'd be very pleased if you told your friends about us. And while you're at it, write us a 5-star or equivalent review wherever you're listening. The man who spoke to you was Mr. Edward October. Hey, you. Yes, you. Are you looking for a new podcast that appeals to your scientific curiosity, but is also a little bit spooky?
Show me how I died in a past life.
Well, look no further, because this cat is where it's at.
He had concerns about the ethics surrounding AI, feeling they had achieved consciousness.
Curious Cat Podcast examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. Listen every week with your host, Jennifer Holtz, as she and her guests explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit.
We were healing karma together. They were all kind of predestined to resolve something.
Listen on all your favorite streaming apps and continue the conversation on Twitter at CuriousCatPodCA, or find Jennifer and all her links at Jennifer L. Holtz, spelled HOTES.com.
First impressions can take only 6 seconds to make. But if you're neurodivergent, those quick judgments about you can be misleading.
Because of most people's ignorance around learning disabilities, people think it means you're intellectually incapable.
I'm not Rain Man. Every autistic person isn't Rain Man.
I thought I was talking to people who understood dyslexia and ADHD, but they did not.
They freaked out and were like, well, if you've got Tourette's, if it's going to be a problem, then we can just fire you and get someone else.
I'm Carolyn Keel, and I host Beyond 6 Seconds, a podcast where neurodivergent people share their lives and advocacy.
One of my goals is making autism not something that's scary.
I really want to help people understand dyspraxia a little bit better.
Get the real life of Tourette syndrome out there. Stop thinking we were nothing but a joke.
Let's shatter misconceptions and celebrate neurodiversity together. Listen at beyond6seconds.net or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Pitney.
And I'm Amelia.
And we're from
Pitney and Amelia's Bitchin' Boutique. Who are we?
Why, we're your new best friends, of course.
Pull up a seat and listen in to what we think about people, places, and things.
Geeky stuff, horror movies, weirdos we know, spirituality, sexuality, food, filth.
It's like eavesdropping on the people at the next table for like an hour or so, and wishing you could join in on their conversation.
Also, do you see who just came in? Look at that hair.
Oh, honey, just... no.
Bitchiness, you're soaking in it.
We soften your hands while you do the dishes.
Pitney and Amelia's Bitchin' Boutique.
We're here.
We're queer. And we're
in your ear. Every other Friday, where all the classiest podcasts are found.
Brian... Ooh.
Also, apparently, wounded deer have been known to scream and make breathy sounds, like rasp, like humans. So, like, if something was, like, wounded and was out wandering around your tent, it might sound like it's breathing like a human. And their movements would be considered erratic. So, like, you might think it's possessed or a mutant, but it could also just be a deer. Also, I just love that they put this, that the reason why your tents might be open and your shit might be taken and whatnot could just be raccoons, porcupines, and possums. They could just come in and steal your shit. I would not be mad at that. I kind of love a raccoon. I'm one of those people who are like, can I have my own raccoon? There was a president who had a raccoon, which is an interesting story. Basically, someone sent them a raccoon for dinner, and the president's wife, I know, but this was a different time. Yeah, people ate weird shit. They sent them a raccoon, and they were like, we're not going to fucking eat this raccoon. We're going to keep it as a pet. We're going to name it Rebecca. So there was a period of time, there was a period of time where a raccoon named Rebecca lived in the White House. And if raccoons can be the presidential first pet, they can steal your camping gear. Those are not directly related. Do not quote me on that, but yeah. Also, we talked a little about mountain lions. Cougars also make sounds that sound like, women screaming, or it says that when females are in heat, they scream, and the scream sounds like a person in distress. I have heard this. I've been at my house at night and heard it coming off the foothills. A big like, Dad, he's like, nope, don't go outside.
Stay in.
Janice Knowlton died of an overdose. Wow, I should just not trust Google correct.
I learned something also from TikTok. Did you know that when ravens talk, they don't sound like parrots, that they sound like people?
What?
Yeah. I knew that ravens talked, but I thought ravens talked like parrots talk, right? Like
I didn't even know they talked.
They do.
I'm learning something. Oh my God, that's so scary.
I'll have to look it up, but there's this creator on TikTok, or I watch her on Instagram, but she has a raven, and her raven says words, like it says things, and also sings. And this was the thing that I was like, what if you said, what if you heard, you said something out loud, you're walking, imagine if you Tara knows this, I'll do something, I'll be like, damn it, Jessica. And then all of a sudden it just the raven heard my name and was like, Jessica.
Ew.
Right? But it's like a bird. And this is why I don't fucking trust birds. This is another reason why I don't trust birds. But ravens can talk, and they say things. They can make knocking sounds. They can mimic people.
Oh my God. I don't know if it's the same for ravens, but that's like crows remember people's faces.
Mm-hmm.
So if ravens can't, oh my God, they're like the ultimate troll. So not only can they talk, they can also, I don't know if they can. If they can't, it's fine.
I think they can.
For story's sake, they could hear you say, damn it, Jessica, remember your face, and be like, that's Jessica. And then they come to torment you. Ew.
Right?
I don't like it.
Right?
He's in a picture surrounded by British actors playing pipe-smoking, tweed-wearing... He's in a picture surrounded by British actors playing pipe-smoking, tweed-wearing bureaucrat... Pipe-smoking...